You're live.
Dan.
Big one.
Big one.
Yeah.
Usually we start off with welcome to Drinkin' Bros, but I think it's too much. I think it's too much today. I think we just have to dive into the guest.
Yep.
Everybody says believe in science. I just believe in Neil.
Yep.
Neil Degrasse Tyson is here, ladies and gentlemen, with his brand new book, Cosmic Queries, which just came out yesterday. And I'm looking at Amazon, Neil, and it says it's out of stock. Are you sold out already? Is the book that big?
Right? Oh, it just came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
yesterday.
that's a good problem to have, obviously.
Okay.
It's like you don't want your book taken down, but if it's bought out, I think that's a good thing. Pretty sure.
Yeah, that's a
right?
good.
Yeah.
It is, but look, I've seen you on every single network doing the interviews and all that stuff. To me, you're the one guy who is so likable. You're almost the Mr. Rogers of science, and I hope you're not offended by that. But everybody I told that I was coming on the show, from my grandmother down to my children, were like, "Oh my God, Dad! Like, hey, you finally made it. You got Neil on the show." And I'm like, "Yes, you appeal to everyone." And I think it's because you make science fun and you make it easy to understand, and that's the great thing about your book in particular.
Well, thanks for thinking that. I look at it slightly differently.
Okay.
I look at it as. Let me change my gain here so I can hear you.
Boost it, yeah.
Okay. So it's not that I'm likable, it's that the universe is likable. And I'm a conduit to the cosmos for people who are curious.
That's a good thing to be. I mean, I would say, I hope I'm not speaking out of school here, but I would say your mentor is probably Carl Sagan, right? He's my personal hero in science. I've loved this man since I was a child. And not just the work he did, but the man he was so
He's a
important.
great combination of wit and wisdom, and he had a good fireside manner.
Right.
And a lot of that are things to emulate if you want to communicate in a way that is meaningful to people who are doing the learning.
Right.
And so for me, I strive to have you learn in a way that empowers you, so that you will go to the next dinner party you're at, or wherever you guys hang out, and you'll say something, and at no time do I want you to reference me. I don't want you to say, this is true because Tyson said so. No, you'll say, this is true because here's why. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you end up doing after spending time with me, I have succeeded.
Right. I mean, that's the teach someone how to think, not what to think, is a very important thing. It's
precisely
something we've clearly lost in American politics these days, because we just soundbite after soundbite. But in science, you feel like that should be a beyond reproach. So this book is, some of the questions that people answer at large. Science, just like religion and sociology and all this stuff, has become, over the time, just a way for people to try to understand why we're here, what we're doing here, what is the meaning of all this and all this stuff. Science is one way to do it. Religion's another way. There's other ways as well. This is some of the big questions, like what is life on Earth and in the universe? What does that mean to you? Like, what does the word life mean?
Let me say what you said, but a little differently. Mm-hmm. So certain questions far better lend themselves to scientific inquiry than to political inquiry.
Correct.
Or religious or cultural inquiry. So, for example, how hot is the sun? Or what is happening in Earth's atmosphere? Or what will happen if you're exposed to a virus? I'm going to my science medical professional for those questions. I'm not going to my priest, right? So there's a difference between what role science can and should and does play in society versus other sources of wisdom or insight into the world. And in this book, we collected questions that are the deepest ones anyone has ever asked about this world throughout civilization. Where did it all come from? How did it get to be this way? How will it all end? Is there life in the universe? How did the universe get to be the way it is? And these deepest questions are what drives the content of that book. And I want to emphasize that the book was chosen not for what answers we have, but for what questions there are. Which means some answers, we got them. They're good. Mm-hmm. Others are like, the answer, this is the best we got right now. We're still working on it. We got top people thinking about it. And other questions are like, dude, we don't even know if this is the right question.
Right.
Yeah. And with that, like, I've been watching you do the rounds and the press tour and everything, and everybody's asking you questions. And I was trying to think of one on the way over to the studio today that no one has asked you. Do you think that we're living in a sim world? Is that a possibility?
I used to think that, and I didn't want to believe it, but I didn't have a good reason to not believe it, right? And the argument for it, and we discussed this in the book as well, but the argument in favor of a sim world is that, okay, you have one real world, and then someone in that real world, probably a kid in a parent's basement, simulates a universe with very high-powered computers.
Right.
And it gives the people in the computer a sense of self-identity, creates laws that operate within that universe. And then that simulation evolves to then create simulations within it.
That's a good point.
Why
I've never
wouldn't
thought
they?
about. We've had Rizwan on the show before, and I never thought about, from our perspective, I don't know if he wrote about this in the book. I don't remember. It's so long ago I read it. But we, as human beings, have created all kinds of simulated worlds.
Correct.
So
yes.
if there's any kind of self-awareness at that level, then that would pretty much guarantee that we're in a simulation, right?
Well, exactly. No, but watch. Well, I'm not done. So now, so that inside the simulation, they say, "Gee, we invented computers, and we can simulate things. So let's do that." And so then they simulate a universe, and then you keep doing this, and it's universes all the way down with only one real universe that began it all. So now close your eyes and throw a dart. Which of these universes are you most likely to hit? The one original universe, or any of the others that are simulated? Right. And so that was a very strong argument, and it was upsetting to me. Not really, but I was distracted by this, and then I was finally talked off the ledge. Okay, do you want to know how?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so every universe in that sequence that I just described for you has the computing power to completely simulate a universe within itself, to completely do it,
Right.
in every detail, okay? Except the last universe, which hasn't gotten there yet, because they're still evolving their computers, right? They have to invent their own computers, and so every other one can do it. So the first one did do it, and it's real. The last one hasn't done it yet. Okay, so can we create a perfect copy of ourselves in a computer? No, we can't yet. So we're not one of these universes in the middle. We are either the one real universe up front, or the simulated universe at the end that hasn't gotten to the point yet of simulating a real universe within it.
So
that
that's
takes
really
the odds
interesting.
from 1 in a zillion to like 1 in 2.
Right.
What would you like to believe overall? Look, obviously the question of God and religion or sim world or wherever we are in this universe, what would Tyson, because that's what you called yourself, and I feel like we're bros now that I can call you Tyson, and I'm going to tell people, yeah, we're on a last name basis, Tyson Patterson. What would you like to believe is at the end of this, when your life is over?
So that's not how I think. Right. It's not what I want to be true. It's what is true, established by the methods and tools of science, and that's what I celebrate.
Right.
It's not like I wish it was some other way. Yeah, I wish we didn't have a virus, but you know what I really wish? That we had enough funding over the years so that everyone had antiviral medication. You just drink with your cup of orange juice in the morning.
Right.
So that virus attacks would be something of the past, like the bubonic plague. Nobody gets the bubonic plague anymore because there's a pill for that, right? So I think of not. Yeah, I want a world where the knowledge we glean through the methods and tools of science actually helps us in this world, and we're not up against people who are saying, "I don't want to believe the science. I'm going to believe my politics, or I want to get my." Like Kyrie Irving, I see you got sports stuff. Kyrie Irving was totally into a flat Earth for a while.
Yeah.
Okay,
he tried to play it off at some point, but he was
saying, Neil, what do you have to say about that? I said, I don't have anything to say about it. The boy plays basketball. Plenty of jobs for you in this world. if you want to believe in a flat Earth where your job is not impacted by that.
Right.
And in a free society, go right ahead.
Yep.
Just don't try to run for head of NASA, okay? That would be a disaster.
So if you don't think we're in a simulation now, or you think the odds are low,
Oh, they're much better for us, yeah.
you think that what's the prevailing science now? Because it's been M theory for a while, soap bubble theories, a lot of different stuff going on, multiverse stuff. What's the hot new thing? What are people studying now? What's been proven? I mean, CERN and Fermilab have been active for a while. They've been smashing stuff together. What's come out
that's
of
a
this?
great line of questioning there. So just for those who are not in the know the way you are, M theory stands for membrane, and it's an extension. It's a higher dimension extension of string theory. All right. So string theory we probably all heard of. It's the idea that the particles in the universe are not really physical particles. They're a string vibrating in a particular way to manifest as a particle to us. And if that is the ultimate nature of reality, that's interesting. But then why be limited to just one-dimensional strings? Maybe the universe is two-dimensional. It's two-dimensional, and the string is just a cut. If you take a cut through a two-dimensional surface, you get a string. Right? In the same way, if you take a cut through a cube, you get a square. Right, and so these are so if you go to higher dimensions, then you'd get the math pros in on that,
right?
And then they say, what might our understanding of the universe be if instead of strings we had multi-dimensional strings, if you will, higher dimensional strings? So that's about where I left them because I couldn't follow. If all right, float away, and I'm not coming after you.
Right.
What I do like, however, are the levels of multiverses, and we talk about it in the book. There's like the regular multiverse where there's another universe just like ours, and might have one of your shows on it, and the two of you were talking, except maybe the jerseys are swapped left and right. And that would be an infinite number of other universes with all the same laws of physics. But there are different levels of multiverses. There's another one where the initial conditions would be different, but it has the same laws of physics. In that universe, maybe there's hardly any matter in it. Or maybe there's too much matter, and then there's not enough energy, okay? And then another level would be all the laws of physics are different. And it's like, ooh, that you don't want to visit that universe.
Get pulled apart or whatever. I mean, there was something bad would happen for sure.
Yeah, but doesn't that excite you that the possibility is out there? Like, that's why I love doing podcasts every day, and it's the curiosity of the mind. You are clearly a guy who is always curious every single day, and I think that's why Dan was asking that. What do you think the next big thing is?
For me, I would step out of astrophysics briefly for that. Well, the next big thing would be if we discover life in the universe, of any kind, microbial. That would transform things.
That seems like almost a foregone conclusion. We're just waiting for the evidence to come in. Yeah.
So a scary future would be we take complete control of our genome. Whoa. And we say, okay, let's make the genome so that we never get a disease or never get cancer. That would be how I would want to sort of start that out. But there's always nefarious forces out there. And someone might say, I want my kids to be great at piano. And in fact, I want to give them each 6 fingers so that they can hit more piano keys than anybody else. And then you engineer them to have 6 fingers. So this genetic engineering, which we're already done with
CRISPR,
and China's doing it right now.
CRISPR. By the way, we've been doing genetic engineering ever since there's been farming. We just didn't call it that. It's called breeding, selective breeding. That is genetic engineering.
No, you can say fuck all you want here.
You can say fuck all you want on this show.
All these anti-GMO people, I'm like, you wouldn't have corn without GMO.
You wouldn't have corn. Go take a look at what corn used to look like.
Yeah, it's
and
maize.
what it looked like today. And you can tell me that's not a GMO. Excuse me. Dogs are GMO, right? So
dogs are GMO. That's good.
There are no herds of wild milk cows,
of course,
wandering the countryside.
No, but
we then harnessed for our milk.
Yeah, to your point, basically what you're describing is eugenics, right? And it becomes a problem when, just like anything else, and Tim Wu wrote about this in the book, The Master Switch. I reference it all the time. But anytime nefarious or oppressive forces come into control of whatever the new technology that's produced creative destruction is, whether it's television, radio, or tech, or science, or whatever it happens to be, right? There's always the risk of somebody doing something fucked up with it.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we don't think about second and third order effects. We think about now.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you want to be a little more scared. So you can invent a knife, and there are people who will stab you with it, and there are people who will cut food with it. All right.
Right.
So you can set up laws that if they stab you, you put them in jail. Okay. Or you take away their knives. But suppose I control a genome, and then I set loose a new life form into the earth. Yeah, you can jail me, but it's too late. All right. I've already set forth the new life form.
Right.
And maybe I make a virus that is resistant to every viral serum you had previously made. All right. And that becomes weaponized. So that is a world that scares me a little. I would look forward to a world without disease and pestilence, but I don't have enough confidence in the wisdom of our species to manage that level of scientific power.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
I think we have to step lightly as we proceed.
Somebody actually, and kind of jokingly, a couple of weeks ago, mentioned to me, "Hey, I wish teleportation existed." I'm like, "Not me." Every time we as human beings try to speed some process up that is meant to take a long time, whether it's growing up, whether it's becoming like developing social skills, whether it's information like the internet. Now we have every piece of information ever, and it's in my pocket all the time, and I am no smarter for it. In fact, I'm dumber for it.
Yeah.
I'm dumber because I know that I only have a certain amount of time, so there's no experts anymore. They're only jacks of all trade, and even that is not good enough because they don't actually know what the fuck they're talking about. They know
and the problem is
the headline.
knowing enough to think
Yes.
that you're right.
Nothing's
but
more dangerous.
Not enough to know that you're wrong.
Correct. Nothing is more dangerous than that.
Yeah,
Right. And so we have smartphones and dumb people. Is what happened.
I'm trying to dumb myself down, so I just got a Razor flip phone from like 2000, right?
Cool.
Well, it is cool, and I took it in to get a number on it, because I'm clearly got this iPhone here right now, right? I did a display box and all that other stuff for the flip phone. I took it in. They did not know how to program it, and they were like, "Sir, you're gonna have to take this somewhere else." No lie. And I'm like, they were like, "Why would you want this?" And I go, "I don't want all the information that's on my phone all day long."
And that's just 20 years ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want all of this all day long. As a matter of fact, I want less of it. And they were like, the kid looked at me and he was like, "That's weird."
So that was the point, though. I mean, can we? It's about self-control. If I know that I overeat at night, I don't stock my pantry with stupid shit I don't need to be eating. And I know as a race of people, as a species, that if we're not responsible enough to handle what limited technology we have now, God forbid we come into something that's truly devastating, like the atomic bomb, for example. I mean, this ever since its creation, it has been the bane of humans' existence because we don't know when some asshole is going to get their hands on it and use it inappropriately, if there was ever an appropriate use for that, right?
Yeah. So okay. Fortunately, to create a bomb and deliver it, an atomic bomb, requires way more than just you working in your basement. It requires a whole operation. So that's in principle maybe trackable. They need plutonium, and plutonium is missing from the lab, right? This sort of thing. So one thing about atomic weapons that's not widely appreciated, all right, they're devastating, all right, but then why would you want to level an entire city if you had control? What has happened since atomic bombs is we have GPS-guided missiles.
Right.
So you don't take out an entire city, you take out the ball bearing factory with a missile that hits its target within 4 centimeters.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
You take out, so the military strategy is not how much of your landscape can we destroy, it's how can we be strategic with a much cheaper weapon and achieve exactly the same results.
Right, and I think that's an important thing about warfare. I mean, we think of these things. I was in the military for a while and spent some time overseas in some pretty shitty situations, but unless you're a psychopath, if you're in that situation, I was an infantryman in the 82nd Airborne, so we're known for fucking shit up, but target discrimination is a big deal. I don't want any unnecessary loss of life. That shit doesn't feel good. You know what I mean?
Or it shouldn't feel good.
It shouldn't, but if
exactly.
it feels good to you, then you're a piece of shit, frankly. But if it shouldn't feel good, it doesn't feel good, and not only that, but it puts us in more danger. And the unnecessary loss of life is something that everybody should be fighting against. So I like the smart weapons
Loss
idea.
and property, things that, I mean, even if you are evil, you still want to move into the buildings that were there. What good is a completely rubbleized city, right? So I'm just saying strategically, nuclear weapons are like the messiest thing you could ever unleash.
Yeah. So I mean, luckily we've not seen that except for, one time, I guess, or twice technically. But
Yeah, well, 3 times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The test
yes,
and then the
yeah,
2
the test,
used in warfare.
So, speaking of all this death and destruction, how do you think the universe? This is a big question. The big freeze, the
rip?
You know, the rip.
Yeah.
There's all kinds
the
of
rip
theories.
terrifies
about
me.
this.
Don't get me started on the rip.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
in M theory, is it possible that 2 membranes could smash together hard enough to destroy both of them somehow? You know what I mean? I have no idea.
The rip
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the one
So
that
we
frightens
spent
me. I cannot
We spent
sleep
some
over
time
the
in the
rip.
book talking about unstable universes
Right.
that will spontaneously float. So what would unstable mean? So let's say you have a hill and there's a little dip in the hill, it goes back up, and then it goes to a much lower point later on in that hill.
Right.
So if it rains, rain will collect in that upper part of the hill, but that puddle really wants to get to the bottom of the hill. That's ultimately where it wants
Right.
to be, as low as it can get, but it's kind of stuck there. There is the possibility that our universe is stuck in one of these wells, okay? And it's called it's called a false vacuum.
Is that how? Are you like describing how gravity works, where there's space-time's being bent, but maybe outside of our universe, and it's stuck?
Not quite, but you can think of gravity in this context,
Okay.
where you're stuck in a gravitational well.
Right, yeah,
But you'd rather. So, for example, you have something on your shelf. It's stable there until it gets pushed off the shelf.
Right.
Then it goes to a lower energy state. Okay.
Right.
And so it's there because the shelf is stable. But if the shelf goes unstable, everything gets to a lower point. So if our universe is at this higher energy state, it's possible for the universe to not go up over the lip and back down again. It's possible from a quantum mechanical point of view for it to tunnel through that lip, gain access to the lower energy states, and then the entire universe pours out and goes to that lower energy state.
Like a bag of
all the
Canadian
energy
milk.
we used to have up at that higher energy state, it's got to go somewhere. And so it manifests in other universes and expansions. And so this whole chapter is an exploration of the havoc that energy can wreak on the universe in which we live. And the big rip, once I got all the details on that and put it in the book, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't go to sleep tonight.
That's what I was referencing when I was talking about it. When I read that in your book, I hadn't heard that, and holy shit, that is more scary than any horror movie you could imagine.
Yes, it is scary. So here's what happens. You have the expansion of the universe, which is accelerating. And when you're accelerating, it means you're forever getting faster and faster, okay? And in fact, the acceleration may be accelerating, which means eventually it expands all the galaxies out of your night sky beyond your horizon. Then it starts eating away at the stars of your night sky and pushes them out because the fabric even within the galaxy itself is expanding. Then it keeps going, and then it begins to overcome the molecular forces of matter itself, and it spreads them apart.
I mean, this is what happens in the event horizon. This is what you're describing, right? I mean,
All of them are being expanded beyond the event horizon. Correct.
Yes, that's
it's why you
insane.
can't see them. You can no longer interact with them. Then this continues, and it starts fighting the very structure of atoms themselves and the particles. And you reach a point where it is trying to separate the quantization of space itself. And at that level, you are no longer flexible. You are no longer.
You get spaghettified, right? I mean, that's
You cannot. And so we don't know anything else that space-time would do except rip. And I don't even want to contemplate what that is.
Doesn't that seem very likely, though? The way gravity works and the way that dark matter, which we have no idea what the fuck it is, and black holes play such a big role just in the fundamental structure
No,
of our
their
universe.
role is to bring things back. It's dark energy that wins out.
Yes.
That's
So-
the opposite gravity
Right,
force.
exactly. So it seems like that's what's happening, though, doesn't it?
That's
Based
what's
on our
happening
current
now.
understanding.
The question, yes, that's what's happening now. The question is, how much longer will it continue? Will some other phenomenon kick in that will resist it? But we know when the big rip would take place if it goes unchecked, and that's in 10 to the 30 years.
Wait,
Well,
10 to 30 years from now?
No, 10 to the
Yeah.
30. So
10
10
to
with
30.
30 zeros behind it.
Oh, well,
so
that I'm fine with. Yeah, Daddy's long
didn't mean to
gone by
scare you.
then. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
like,
not
yo,
10
10 to
to
30
30.
years? I was about to
10
get
to
out
the
of here and get some
power.
prostitutes.
10 to the power of 30 years.
Well, I mean, we'll be gone long before that because our sun is going to expand into a red giant. And
No, but
consume all the way out
if
to
you're
Jupiter,
good,
right?
you planet hop and then you find new stars.
Yeah, that's what
if
Sagan
you're
always
good.
said. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? The planet. I mean, that thing you're talking about accelerating. That he had this idea, the spaceship of the imagination, but he wanted to develop an interstellar ship that collected ions on the front end and spit them back as in an exponential series through the back.
ion drive, yeah.
Ion drive, yeah. It's the craziest shit I've ever heard. I mean, not crazy. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still not as fast as warp drives. So really, that's what you're after here.
Warp drive is probably bending space-time and not moving us, though, right? That seems like the
That's
theory.
one version of the warp drive. That's correct.
Oh.
The one used in Star Trek, which in one show I incorrectly analyzed. I mean, I had the wrong understanding of the warp drives as invoked in Star Trek.
Right.
And because you can imagine warping space between you and your destination, and that brings them closer together, and you just go through a little wormhole,
Right.
unfold space, and you're where you need to be. So at Star Trek, that's not how it works in the Star Trek universe. So they're basically surfing on the ripples in the fabric of space and time, and you can do that if you expand space, if you shrink space in front of you and expand it behind
Right.
you, then you can go much faster than the speed of light.
Theoretically, that should be possible. Right?
In principle,
and
yeah.
that would isolate the traveler as well, so they're not involved in the expansion and contraction. So they're not getting spaghetti.
That's a good point. You don't want to involve them in what's going on. Yeah, I don't know how you do that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a part of that at all.
Speaking of expanding and contracting, what the fuck is inflation? I know what it is in theory, but I mean, not that we should be able to figure it out that easily, but explain what inflation is, what it explains, and then what we don't know about it still, because our audience likes stuff like this. Because it's
Okay, so check it out. So you're in a studio. If I put a thermometer on your desk and maybe on the top shelf above your knickknacks, and maybe one near your camera, we'll probably get 4 different readings, 3 or 4 different, but there might be 1 degree apart from each other, perhaps. Okay, well, that entire room is sharing the same air. So, and there's 1 air duct and so the best you can do is within a couple of degrees, fine. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. All the air is being shared. It's coming through the same ducts and the same vents. All right. In the universe, if I look in one direction off to my left, and I measure the temperature of the universe, and then I look off to my right and measure the temperature of the universe, it matches to within 1/100th of a degree.
That close.
1/100th of a degree in every direction I look. And this had no explanation until inflation came along. Okay? By the way, the temperature we're reading, that goes back to the early universe near the Big Bang.
Right.
500,000 years after the Big Bang. The universe in all these directions has exactly the same temperature, better than the temperature of the air in your room. And so you have to ask, did this part off to my left talk to this part on the right? Did they get together and get what's called thermalized?
Right.
Now they have the same temperature, and then you separate them. Now they have the same. Did that happen? How did that happen? They're too far apart for that to have happened. So this was a mystery until inflation was proposed. In the early universe, it's one of these releases of energy of the kind that I described to you about matter and energy, a universe sliding through, tunneling out of this false pocket. But that false pocket has energy. Oh, by the way, what happens to the energy of the glass that's on the shelf that falls? The energy breaks the glass. That's why things break when they fall.
Right.
Because they started with a higher energy state. And where does that energy go at the point they hit the ground? It goes back into the thing and it shatters. So it goes back into the universe. So in that scenario, you bring that back to the early universe and watch what happens. Here's the entire universe, and it's really small. Small enough so that all pieces talk to each other, and it's exactly the same temperature. Okay? Then it goes through this tunneling phenomenon, and you have a rapid inflation of the size of the universe, way faster than the speed of light. Okay? And it expands so fast, these separate parts of the universe didn't have time enough to be different from each other.
Right. How many light years are we talking about across? If
A 500,000 light years.
500,000 light years, and it's like 1/32,000th of a second or something like that?
Sorry. The inflation happened much earlier than that.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Okay.
So it's a very tiny fraction of a second. The
Right.
size of the universe ballooned from something smaller than the size of an atomic nucleus
Right.
to something that might be like the size of a marble. I have to
Okay.
recheck what the latest size estimates of that are, but if you do that in a fraction of a second, you're moving way faster than light.
Right.
And what you have done is imprinted in the universe the record of the temperature that everybody enjoyed sharing before inflation
And
took place.
we see this in the CMB then. When we look
Yes.
back at the cosmic microwave background, we can see that the temperature in this, so the explanation he's giving is in this room, if we just put some thermometers a few feet apart, even they are going to have different temperatures. But in this bigger example, way farther back, for no apparent reason other than inflation, they have the same temperature everywhere. Which means, I mean, when you say talking to each other, that makes me think quantum entanglement almost, but it can't be
No,
that.
no.
Because
Just-
things don't
I mean,
tell each other how to be.
interacting.
Yeah, for sure.
But if one part is hot and one part is cold, how do you make them neutral? You put them together,
Right.
and then they become one temperature when they're done.
Right.
And so whatever the universe was in the very early universe, it was small enough for it to have exactly the same temperature as itself. And now you start expanding, and now things can happen. If you expand slowly, okay, stars are born and things collapse and expand. There are all manner of reasons that you'd have a different temperature, and it doesn't.
Right, of course.
So that's how inflation ended up in the conversation.
So do we have any idea then, because we don't know necessarily what might have caused inflation? It could be
Well, we have suggestions. So what happens when you're moving through this tunnel and the energy manifests somewhere? So this is called a phase transition
Right.
in the early universe. And a phase transition is everything was one way at one moment, and then in the next moment it's completely different.
I had one of those in college,
you-
actually. Yeah.
This energy that you got to release
Right.
at some point. So here's an example. One moment you have a cup of water, and the next moment it's solid. Oh my gosh, how the hell did that happen? That's a phase transition.
Right.
The water turned to ice. Okay, and to turn to ice, it has to release a lot of energy to do that. You don't think about it and you don't know it because it's usually happening in a cold environment.
But it slows
for that
way
to happen,
down. Right.
you can measure how much energy that released into the environment.
Okay. So speaking of energy, any idea at all what dark energy or dark matter is for that matter?
No, we're completely
Like we have
dumbfounded.
no idea, right? I mean, it could be like
And it's 96% of what's driving the universe. So everything we know and love about physics, chemistry, biology, and life, and planets and stars
4%.
is 4%.
Yeah. When you break it down,
We know a
Michael-
lot too.
Yeah,
that's the
we
thing.
can-
We know a lot compared to what we knew 100 years ago. Well, let's say
I'm loving that
120.
4%. Yeah. I'm loving the 4%. But I'm candid about the 96%.
Right.
I mean, what a joy it is to be able to quantify how much we don't know.
I mean, that's job security for you, Neil.
It really
You know what I
is.
mean? And it's that underlying that scientific mind, the Socratic method. It's not about being right. It's about getting the right answer. Right? It's about representing what reality is. That Sagan said that all the
I
time.
would say it's deeper than that. It's about getting the right question.
That's where we've come to in this last two generations. Really, I really feel
Right,
like
because some questions are illegal in their universe.
Right.
Okay. I'll give you an example of one.
speed of light.
You visit Santa Claus and ask Santa Claus, which way do I go north? Okay. And the problem is every direction Santa Claus points to is due south.
Right.
There's no east-west either on the North Pole. So the very question, how do you go north of the North Pole, has no meaning in the universe of Earth's surface. Okay, here's another one. Pinocchio says, "My nose is about to grow." What would happen next?
Well, it depends on what she looks like. Totally kidding, Neil.
That's a good. I had no idea.
It's a great question.
So you're asking the right question. Should we be
No.
focused on what the speed of
think
light
about
is?
it. If Pinocchio's nose grows,
Then he was
that
telling the
meant he was
truth,
telling the truth.
but also
But then
lying.
his nose shouldn't have grown.
Right. Exactly. So
Yeah.
we're talking about.
And if his nose doesn't grow, that meant he was lying, which means his nose should grow.
So we're talking about one of the fundamental principles of science, which is cause and effect at that point, right?
No, I'm talking about a universe where certain questions and certain statements have no meaning.
So what questions, in your opinion, that have dominated science over the last 100 years have no real meaning then? If there's a,
so if you pose the question well within the boundaries of the unknown, you're okay.
Right.
How do you go from inorganic life to inorganic molecules to self-replicating life? These are very straightforward, honest questions, and you can set up labs to address it. In Cosmic Queries, those questions and answers are there, but so are the questions that not only have no answer yet, we don't even know if it's the right question.
Right.
Because there's no reference frame to pass judgment on whether or not it's the right question.
Right, like you can make a...
So, and in the Pinocchio universe, my nose is about to grow has no meaning in his universe.
Right. So M theory, at least as it was the last time I really researched, was there's 10 spatial dimensions predicted, right?
I think I get dimensionally addled after a while.
Yeah, but it's the truly interesting part to me about it is the question of time and what time is, because I think that's what really that story about Einstein riding in the carriage away from the clock is one of my favorite stories ever, because that's how real breakthroughs happen. It's the shower principle. Your mind is distracted and you're like, oh shit, that's probably something I should look into. All of time in the third dimension exists in the fourth dimension as one single unit, at least according to these theories, more or less. So I wonder, what does that mean? What's the implication of that for us? If all of our time has already happened somewhere else, does that take away our agency? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does. It would.
But so
that's correct. So you're just living out a timeline,
right,
where the entire timeline exists and has always existed.
But
so there is no before and after. It is only your entire life happening all at once. So you're always being born, you're always dying.
But isn't that true though? Because from the demonstrations I've seen, the practical demonstrations, one of them is a ream of paper, and a guy draws a line from one top corner down to the bottom corner and flips the pages. To me, this looks like one solid two-dimensional object on my table, or three-dimensional object on my table. But in the fourth dimension, or I'm sorry, in the second dimension, that's single individual moments passing in time. So why would that not be the case from the fourth to the third dimension? And if that is the case, what the hell are we doing here?
So I'm happy. So let's say that is true, for
Okay.
example. I'm completely happy living with the illusion of free will.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we do that every day.
Yeah, like today, for example, there's some users, some of our listeners who were like, Ross looks lost today. Yeah, I am. I got super high and wanted to listen to this because these are things to me personally, and I would say most Americans are dumb. My wife says this all the time. She's like, I'm happy living as a dum-dum, so I don't have to think about this, because if I woke up and thought about this every single day, it would be so crippling that I don't know if I would be able to get out of bed.
I think if you were a scientist and all of you was wrapped up in finding answers instead of, like he's saying, finding the right questions, I think you would go mad. I honestly think you would lose your mind.
I do too. And I think that's why you have the right point of view of all of this, or what are the right questions, because I don't know if we'll ever have all the right answers, right?
Well,
Yeah. So let me comment on your wife's comment.
Yeah.
If you need answers to everything, and there are questions posing that are addling of the brain, that could be disturbing. But the scientists have learned to love the questions themselves, and the questions themselves are that is the attraction, and the not knowing is what draws you to the frontier. That's what's exciting. So at no time are you going to say, oh, this is hurting my head. I can't do this anymore. No, give me more. I want my head to hurt. In fact, my head doesn't hurt. My head thrives on the not knowing. That's what keeps going.
And that's amazing. And to my wife's point, like, because I asked her this, right? I said, look, somebody's got to be out there thinking about this and all this other stuff. And she goes, and that's great. That's what they get paid for. That's what Neil gets paid the big bucks for. She goes, not me. The only thing she wants more in her face is a different city on Real Housewives of whatever.
That's why
to enter the conversation.
That's why Neil wrote Cosmic Queries. It's the top 10 questions basically that people ask.
It is.
Right, covered. And then there's also astrophysics for people in a hurry. Right,
Oh, you remember that? Thank you. For
Oh, I
that.
remember
Yes.
everything, Neil.
Yeah, he's look.
The guys, you're a sponge. Very good.
I enjoy.
yes,
Yeah, I've been following your career for quite a long time, and I urge you not to follow mine because you're probably going to get offended at some point, right?
Exactly. And I want to go back to something you said earlier
I've
about.
seen some episodes. You guys are very candid about everything.
Yes,
And
all the way around.
I actually respect that, because then at least I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we can have a
Exactly.
conversation about it. Bad ideas only get exposed by good ideas. They don't get exposed by censorship or shutting people down.
Right.
Like I have to, if I'm having a dumb thought, I have to say it out loud. Sometimes even I can tell, like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And then somebody else comes along, that's stupid. Here's why. I'm like, oh shit, you're right. That is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what it means is you have a curious enough mind to take yourself out of the hole you just dug yourself into.
Yeah,
And
of course.
that is rare, I think, in modern times among people. People are just so sure they're right, that they will fight you and go to war.
It's crazy.
With their belief system relative to yours.
I feel there's a really great quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's speak as if you're right and listen as if you're wrong. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I can never remember who the fuck said it, but I think that's really important. You have to speak with conviction, but you have to listen to their point of view like you have no idea what the fuck is happening.
Right.
And
There's another version of that. I would say, you've never learned anything while you were talking.
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
That is a good one, too.
it's totally true. Something you said earlier at the top of the show.
And I
about-
only have a couple more minutes here.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely. And I just want to
tight
get to this
schedule.
last thing because this is big in the news right now. Perseverance just landed on Mars, which was an exciting thing. I saw you chat about it on another program, so I'm not going to ask you about it. What I do want to ask you is, how many years until a human is on Mars? What is your prediction?
I think it won't happen just because people want to. I think if it happens, it'll be because there's a geopolitical force operating that will require it of one country relative to another. So I joke about this, but if China leaked a memo, the memo doesn't even have to be true, leaked a memo that said we want to put military bases on Mars, we're going to have people on Mars in 10 months. 1 month to design, build, and fund the spacecraft, and 9 months to get there. Since we'll set up a Starbucks and a McDonald's. So that's how we got to the moon in the first place, even though our cleansed memory of that period tells us, oh, we're explorers, we're discoverers, and we have a charismatic president who, it's like, oh, by the way, kill the commies. All
Yeah,
right?
it was the Cold War, yeah.
Wrote the checks over that period. So I don't see it happening anytime soon unless there's a geopolitical reason to do it.
Well-
but we'll continue to send rovers for sure.
Do you think there might be an economic reason to do it though? There's the idea of
Not to do it first, no.
maybe not to do it. Well, for a private company, not necessarily. So if SpaceX wants
That's
to,
what I'm saying. Government is going to have to do that first.
So you don't-
my read of history tells me.
You don't-
And by the way, SpaceX can have its Mars rocket, but are the investors in SpaceX going to say, yeah, launch the Mars rocket to Mars and take people, and what is my return on that investment?
Right.
It's not only zero, it's negative.
I think
okay?
I think the impetus is going to be mining minerals, particularly rare earth minerals for batteries in space. That's what I think it'll be.
Sure. However, there's still the cost of that versus what it is to get them here on Earth, right? There's unlimited of those resources on asteroid, no doubt about it. But you're going to say, here's the cost of iridium on Earth. What is it? I don't know what call it $500 an ounce, or it's not that high. But whatever it is, I can go to an asteroid where the whole asteroid is got nothing but iridium, but it costs me $1 billion to get there. Okay, and so no, I'm going to dig more holes and find iridium on Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think it's more likely that if my theory is right, they would have to happen because one country or a series of country boxed out another country and they had to go do it that way, or we as collectively as a species have to flee this planet or something. That's kind of what you're thinking.
No, I'm just simply saying it. I don't see it happening outside. I'm not being that deep about it. I'm just. You think if we weren't at war with the Soviet Union, we would have gone to the moon?
Hell no.
Not a chance.
No, that was.
It was just to be cool. We wanted to be first.
I mean, we didn't. We used Nazi rocket scientists and Newtonian physics to land on the moon. It wasn't
Correct.
It was a matter of will. It wasn't a matter of being able to do it or not. We could send people to Mars right now if we really wanted.
Oh yeah,
He's
it's not a matter of
absolutely
can
right.
we?
Yes.
Do we know how to do it? That's not even the
Yeah.
issue. It ain't even about that. No, it was never about that.
All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find you. The name of the book. I mean,
yeah, it's the Cosmic Queries. Look, the hardback is sold out on Amazon right now, which
No,
is
don't tell me that.
crazy.
I'm sure you can pre-order somewhere.
It's so popular, man. Everybody's buying this. Audible is still up. Kindle is still up right now, and it's Barnes and Noble and Books A Million and all those guys have it. Look, this is a complete joy for us. We always end the show with your Drinkin' Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Neil, who is your Drinkin' Bro of the Week?
Wow. I like that. I'd say it'd have to be my father. I mean, he's deceased, but he was able to distill life experience into dewdrops of wisdom that stick with you, right? What is wisdom? It is the digested knowledge such that it stays with you. You're not memorizing a whole tract. It's simply one sentence or one idea. And so I would hang out with my father again as a drinking buddy.
That's great. That's great. Neil, a pleasure, an absolute honor for us. We've been huge fans for years. We love you.
Excellent. And keep staying crazy. That's always fun.
We definitely will. Please go check out Cosmic Queries.
Yeah.
It is one of the best books of the year, and congratulations. I know the year is early, but I'm going to call it. It's going to be top 5 of the year already.
Okay.
And I love the illustrations.
You got all those other books there. You're going to swap them out? I mean,
we always do. Yes, we always do. Every year we swap them out. So McConaughey was on the show a couple months ago. His book was incredible. Embrace the Suck.
But this is the one he narrated, right?
Yeah, he was so good.
Why didn't you narrate yours, by the way?
I did. I did part of the book.
I
couldn't. Plus, you're taking a job away from someone where that's how they pay their rent.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but you've got one of the
You've got the best voice, one of the best voices in America. People want to hear you.
And now.
Thank you for joining us today. We
Thanks,
appreciate it. Take care, Neil.
All right, we got a few more minutes.
Yeah,
here.
that was a dream interview, man. Wow. So to the people in YouTube, by the way, yes, I was completely lost in that, and then hence that's why our relationship works so well. That way, there's only one dummy on the show and not two, and he's able to answer and ask the big questions, and we're able to keep a great conversation going with a man that's brilliant. Because let's face it, man, some of these things that he talks about in the book and then he focuses on in real life,
right?
It is heavy shit to get involved in every day. And what I said about my wife, Jessie, is true. She's said this a million times of like, man, I don't even want to ponder these questions.
People have existential crises when they're faced with death in general, much less the death of the entire universe, or what implications there might be if there is a multiverse, and what our responsibility might be if things like computers become self-aware. I mean, Sam Harris talks about it in his book, The Moral Landscape. Morality is something that we all decide upon to some degree or another, but there are certain principles that exist, like the Golden Rule, for example, that have existed throughout all of conscious history, basically, right? So the way we come to grips with those things and the way that we process our existence is the story of humanity. That's why I studied religion. It wasn't because I was religious. It was because I enjoyed history and sociology, and I wanted to understand how human beings thought. And watching people try to come to grips with their own existence is the best way you could ever do that. You see their fear, you see their strength, you see their curiosity, you see their stupidity all at the same time. That's what I love about it. But there are consequences to thinking about that stuff.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this is a great question to ask people who are curious like that. If you were going to die in 2 weeks, would you want to know? Would you want to be able to take advantage of those 2 weeks, or would you just want to fucking die and not have to think about it for 2 weeks? What kind of person are you?
So I would not want to know, because everything I do every day, at least, coming to work and doing podcasts, I love that. I love my wife. I love my children. I love my family. And I don't want to know, because everything that I'm doing every day, I feel, at least to me personally, is something that I'm waking up and I enjoy every day.
Right. And I think it's... we have this idea that not wanting to know somehow diminishes you. There's nothing wrong with wanting to just enjoy your life. I mean, you do have responsibilities as a conscious human being or creature of any kind to take care of the people around you and to be a good person. But man, you don't have to sit around wringing your hands worrying about the fate of humanity. Shit's going to happen the way it's going to happen. And by the way, listen when Neil tells you that we don't even know everything about the 4% we have access to. So of all the matter that exists in the universe, 96% of it is dark matter. We don't even know what it is.
Right.
We're talking about 4% of the matter, and we can't even figure that shit out. So just fucking relax, guys. These time scales are huge. We're talking about the end of the solar system. That's 2 billion years at a minimum away from now. You're going to be gone by then, I promise you.
I will be long gone.
If I'm alive in 2 billion years, I'm going to be fucking pissed.
Yeah. When he said 10 to 30, and I thought he said 10 to 30 and not 10 to the 30.
Well, he's not Al Gore. He's not making weird predictions. All right.
No.
He's an actual scientist.
But I will say this: it made me feel better, right? Because you turn on the news every day, and all you see is climate, Green New Deal. If we don't save the Earth, it's going to kill us. Next week or what is it? 14 years, AOC says, or something
8,
like
9,
that.
10, 14, but they've been saying that since 1950, so nobody believes anybody anymore.
Right. And then talking to Neil, he's like, hey, man, we got time here. You know what I'm saying? And there is smart enough guys out there like him and you and everybody else who will figure this out when we get there. It reminds me a lot of like Y2K, where everybody's freaking out. It's the end of the world. We're all going to die.
No, they just wrote a software patch and nothing happened.
Yes, but they waited to the last minute and said, all right, great. We got a guy who can do that, and then we'll figure it out.
Dylan Bonnie down here said something funny. Neil Patrick Harris is a pretty cool guy. Yeah, I forgot about this during the show, but I was going to make a joke that Neils are really good at science, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Neil Armstrong. Obviously, Neil Patrick Harris played Doogie Howser. He's really good at science at a young age. But I fucking whiffed on that one because we were talking about important shit.
We were. And sometimes on shows like this, because look, if you've noticed over the last few years in particular, we have guests from like all walks of life, which is what we love, because it's amazing to be curious about things. I don't mind just listening to a guy like that, because when do you have that chance in life? Like, do you know how many people, when I said he was coming on the show, everybody was like, oh my God, I would kill just to talk to him or listen to him or whatever. It's an absolute dream to do that. And it's like, yes, I'm going to listen.
He's almost like the Joe Rogan of science. And the reason I say that isn't necessarily because of his social media and television fame. It's because he sits at the intersection of a lot of people. The Hayden Planetarium in New York is a big deal. Sagan ran that shit forever. He took over, run it forever now. They are up to date on everything science, right? So the people who are doing these experiments at Fermilab, at CERN, at all these other places, like underground, a mile underground, trying to detect neutrinos and shit like that, particles that move faster than light, all this crazy shit. If some new research happens, some new discovery happens, Neil's one of the first human beings on Earth to know about it, because he curates all of science for the world. You know what I mean? At that planet. Now, he's not the only one. There's plenty of other planetariums out there that have similar roles. He is the most widely known one, which means when somebody has something to say and they want to get it out there to the public, he's going to be one of the first people to know. And he's also as you can see from this interview, he's a very reasonable and thoughtful human being. He doesn't jump to fucking stupid conclusions. He doesn't let his feelings or emotions or politics get involved in what he's doing here. He's a scientist. Right. And it's rare that you find one of these guys, frankly, one of these scientists that are truly good at also communicating. It's not very, I mean, they're once you get hyper smart like that, you lose some of the social skills, obviously. He's one of the guys that's maintained his ability to his dad was a sociologist, so it's no surprise.
Right. And that was what I meant at the top of the show, too, when I said he makes science easy and accessible for a mainstream audience versus talking over their head. Because you and I have both been in conversations with people, they'll just talk over your head just to do it because they know more about the subject matter than you do. And you sit there and you check out of the conversation immediately. I think that's why a guy like Neil has been able to capitalize and gain so much love from America, where it's just like, all right, great. Here's a guy I can understand, puts it in relatable terms. And in the book, by the way, he does the same thing. And there's a lot of illustrations in this. And the reason why is because on the thing it says 12 and up, right? So a 12-year-old could pick up this book, understand it, hopefully gain some knowledge about science, and then see amazing pictures of it. The reason why you don't see more colored pictures in books is simply
costs a shitload of money to print that.
Costs a fuck ton of money to print those.
So when you go buy this book, by the way, I think the inside cover says $30, right?
Yes.
Like, they are not making a lot of money on this book.
Not at all.
Neil's not getting rich on this book because that book costs $5 more to print than any other book. So usually what happens is you do a 60% markup on something. So a normal book like that costs $25. This one's for $30. They only charged you for the extra production cost.
That's it.
We know how the book game works. I'm telling you, he did not make any extra money. He came out of his own pocket to make sure that thing looked cool.
Yeah, and the publisher will ask you, like, from the get, like, hey man, do you have any illustrations? Yes. Are they black and white or are they color? If you say color, they will tell you to go fuck yourself. Obviously, they're not going to say that to Neil. But for me, they're like, yeah, we're doing this in black and white.
Who is this guy in the crowd here? Douglas Legvold. Do you have something to say, or are you just going to say stupid shit?
Oh, he's not a Tyson fan. It's funny, man. You get people who are against certain science or beliefs or whatever.
What's your PhD in, Douglas?
Yeah, Douglas.
You stupid fuck.
Like Vold.
Your PhD is in living in your fucking mom's basement with a neckbeard, you piece of shit.
He says he disgusts me. Dude, if you're disgusted by Neil deGrasse Tyson, you got other fucking problems in life. We've had guests on here before.
Yeah. Michio Kaku's great too. Love him. Love him. I love Brian Greene from Columbia is great. I love Brian Cox from CERN, also great. There's plenty of these guys that are fucking great at it. I'm here. Bring it on. You're a name in a chat room, and now you're fucking banned. You fucking piece of shit. Get the fuck out of here.
And here's the thing, man. Is like, everybody has their own favorite or what their belief is. Oftentimes, it's based, especially in science and religion, right? And so, if your science leans closer to your religion, sometimes you'll get fucking people like this in the goddamn message boards.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Everybody's got their religion.
Yes.
Whatever it is, and you have to. That's one of the things. So Carl Sagan, the guy that was his mentor, used to say, for me, it's far better to grasp the universe as it is rather than persist in delusion, no matter how gratifying it may be, right? Mm-hmm. So understanding how things are allows you to fucking react to them in a reasonable way. If I know, like I said before, if I know that I eat stupid fat boy shit at night and I don't want my fucking body to look like that, I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Right? It's really that simple. Put some measures of control into your life like that. You can only do that if you have good data. Mm-hmm. So make your science the truth, good data, and it works not only in regular science but also in politics, and that's something we've lost.
Yeah, and with Neil, the other thing that I personally like about him is you can tell that guy, the questions are what gets him up out of bed every day. Of like, all right, great, there's a new question, there's a new thing, or whatever. I think a lot of people just don't have that in life, where they're anxious to get up every day and answer a question that they don't know. And I think you should, man. Again, I've said it a million times on this show. That's why I love this job in particular. Like, dude, every day is somebody new. We had, the guy yesterday, the CIO from Cambria on there, talking stonks. Like, learn things that I would never get to learn from other people in real life. Neil, I get to learn things I never get to know in real life. That's what makes it interesting and curious. You can definitely tell he's a guy like that is, he will be asking questions about the world, the universe, and everything else for the rest of his life.
You cannot be emotionally involved in the outcome. Mm-hmm. Because if you are, then you start finding information to support your theory. And you should be finding, like if you have a theory as a scientist, your job is to go out and try to disprove your own theory. And if you can't do that, then you've got something good. But if you go out and try to prove your theory, I mean, shit, one of the things in Lincoln Douglas debate in high school is you take the other person's position. So the teacher will give out a survey, right? Like, how do you feel about this issue or this issue? And then you separate into the groups who believe different ways, and then you make them flip-flop and support the other side. That's how you fucking learn. Listen as if you know nothing. Yeah. And speak as if you know everything.
I have a personal question for you. Because, sorry, Dan. We're going to learn a little bit about you for a minute.
Not comfortable with this.
You stay up at night reading physics, thinking about physics, watching documentaries and all that stuff. Is it too much sometimes that when you get up in the morning, you're fucking pissed off about certain things because your mind is working too much at night thinking about a lot of these questions?
That is the question process is the relaxing part for me, to be honest. The part that irritates me is the ignorance combined with how self-assured people are. Like what he was talking about, that person that knows just enough to be confident but not enough to actually know what the fuck they're talking about. That is a very dangerous ideology. You know what I mean? It's these people that have half-baked ideas about climate change, for example, that are driving policy all over the world right now that makes no fucking sense at all. You know what I mean? It's when you take science and reduce it to politics, then it's not science anymore. You know what I mean? Right. It's fucking stupid bullshit. And we will not continue to exist if that shit happens, right? We keep making decisions. What happens, let's say a true like global catastrophe is heading our way right now. How many people would even believe it at this point? 40% of the population would say, I don't believe you.
I agree.
Like if
I 100% agree. Yes, 40% would say fake media, fake news, and that's not coming.
Let's say
I might be in that camp.
Let's say we discovered something in the atmosphere, right? that was going to set our atmosphere on fire if we didn't do X. And X sucks, but we all got to do it together. Let's say a virus that comes around that doesn't have a survivability rate of 99% comes around. Are people going to fucking lock themselves inside again? Are they going to go to these drastic measures again? The answer is no. A large portion of them will not do it. That is the problem with crying wolf. It's a problem with the intersection of science and politics. It cannot be allowed. It just can't.
And luckily, it doesn't affect Neil and guys like that. This is the point in the show we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the week. I'm actually going to pull up. If I show a picture of him, can you pop it in or no? Or just zoom in on it, I guess. Hold it up to the camera. Come hold it up to the camera. I just dropped him off at the airport, and he's a Drinkin' Bro. As you guys know on this show, pipes burst in my house. I lost the first floor of the house. We could not get any restoration companies in Texas. Let me know when you want to zoom in on him here. Is that too far? Is that good? Is it good? Can you see him? All right. Can you hold it up to the camera? Let me ask you that. Yeah, try to. His name is Mike Boscovich. Out of Michigan, Drinkin' Bro since day one homie. I went on air and I was talking about how hard it was to get a restoration company out to the house, and that happens when okay, good. Thank you very much. That happens when you get floods, water comes to your house and all that stuff. It's a nightmare. Lost the first floor. All the companies were booked in Texas, to the point. I have USAA is my insurance. USAA said, hey, if you know anyone, call them out. We'll pay for whatever. We just don't have any companies to give you, and we're really sorry about that.
There's just a mad rush on
everyone, every plumbers, every walk.
But this
walk
one
of
actually
life.
made sense. This wasn't like people buying up 6 months worth of toilet paper or whatever the fuck. People actually needed to fix their houses. So
Correct.
That's just
and it's got to dry out or else it's going to get mold, and that's the danger of it, right? Yeah. So I had talked about it on Drinkin' Bros. A couple people had said, hey, I do that for a living. And Mike was like, look, not only do I do that for a living, here's 80 pictures of my work and everything else. And he goes, I will take time off of work and talk to my boss and come down there and fix this for you. And I go, look, man, I'll pay you your day rate, anything. I'll buy your flights, all of that stuff. He's like, great, I'll be there. Hopped on a flight at 5 a.m. A few days ago. Him and I worked for 12, 14 hours, mostly him, because I came back here and recorded the shows, obviously, with you. And I let him stay in my bed, everything. Got to sleep in the ghost bed upstairs, all of it. And he goes, dude, thank you so much. And I was like, thank you so much. He's like, I can't believe I'm sleeping in your house. And I was like, I can't believe you would fly down, take time out of your day, take days off of work, leave your wife and kids to come help me. And he looked at me when I dropped him off at the airport today. No lies is what he says.
Did he say, fuck them kids?
Yeah, no, I wish. He goes, that's Drinkin' Bros. That's this community. That's what we do. True, and that was it. And he goes, hey, man, you don't have to pay me whatever. I was like, no, Dan and I always pay everything. Whatever your rate is for all of this stuff that we get help on and everything
People
else.
offer us discounts a lot. No, we'll pay. Like we had police for the election show, and it was like, yeah, we'll give you a discount. Like, no, you're getting full fucking pay.
Hey, just tell me what you get paid. I will write you a check now and all of that stuff. And yeah, man, he stayed in my house for 4 days, got everything fixed. When the insurance adjuster got there this morning, she was like, I can't believe you got anyone to come out here. What is this guy doing? Because I could use him on 80 other houses just in your city alone. And I was like, look, he's going back to Michigan. He's a Drinkin' Bro. But I am unbelievably grateful to you, Mike. And I cannot recommend your work enough, who you are as a person enough to people. And it meant the world to me. And we'll be able to save the rest of the house because it's not molded up. I mean, dude, Jesse and I left endless messages for these fucking companies. Didn't hear back from anybody. Drinkin' Bros, dude. We always hire Drinkin' Bros for all of our stuff.
That is the standard. Anytime people offer discounts and shit, and all I say is, if you want to thank me for any of this, just when the next person needs help, you help them. That's it.
And man, it's just a great dude, and it saved probably the house, to be honest with you. The only thing he asked for in return was he goes, hey man, could you write a letter to my boss explaining why I'm coming there and that, it's part of the show and everything else and everything else? And I go, yeah, of course. And so I said, hey, put a message out on the show. I need people to come in and do this. I greatly appreciate you loaning him to us, whatever. And I go, by the way, why? And he goes, oh, well, he thinks everybody's moving to Texas to do all this work and never come back.
Yeah. Well,
and I was like, well,
that's a short burn. It's not a good idea to move somewhere permanently for a seasonal job.
well, this with how much Austin is growing, and then,
you probably got 2 years of good plumbing work.
yes,
here,
dude,
honest,
and the storms.
Yeah,
this shit isn't gonna get fixed forever because I talked to Homegirl today.
Well, this flash floods all the time, so we're only a matter of time now with the more erratic weather from Texas needing sump pumps and basements and shit like that, right? It's coming soon.
Yes, but I will say this: most of the houses don't have basements here for that reason. Mine doesn't.
Right.
And then it depends on where you are land-wise, and when you get a survey, they'll tell you that. And so I'm not at risk of that. Therefore, I was like, I'll never be at risk for flooding.
Yeah.
Unless the pipes burst for a storm that happens once in every 120 years.
Internal and external flooding, my man. You gotta watch out for both. You also have to watch out for the universe ending, apparently. Thanks, Neil, for ruining everyone's lives.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
What a great show, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Great dude. Please check out his book. And then, Neil, if you're watching later, I did add it to my desk collection.
That one's going to be up there intermittently because I have to finish reading it first.
Yes.
Then it'll be back permanently.
Yeah,
after that.
It will be. We got one book, and then the hardbacks are sold out on Amazon. So check out Barnes & Noble or Books A Million and all that other stuff. They'll have it in stock.
Yeah, somebody will have it in stock. Even if it's not in stock on Amazon for a while, they still have back orders and stuff. So if you're not in a hurry, there's a million ways to get this book.
Yes.
A million ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fuck, man, what a great day. What a great day. Days like this, you're just like, dude, this is the best job in the world. How does it get better than this?
It doesn't.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, go to iTunes, rate the show a 5-star, and leave a quick review. It is about the reviews, not the number of listeners. So please just do that so we can stay towards the top of the charts there every single day. And look, we'll be back at you tomorrow with fake news. And then we'll probably do a few live shows since I'll be going back and forth.
Well, we have another show tomorrow with someone that we're not going to say. You probably don't know who this person is necessarily, but you're definitely going to know their story. I like foreboding shit. I don't know why I'm teasing the audience. And then Friday, Hot Bob and I are also going to do a baseball show again tomorrow night, probably around 5 or so.
Yes.
And then Friday we're
Drinkin' Bros Sports, which is a separate channel
Sports,
and a separate feed for podcasts. So subscribe to that as well.
And we're also going to do we have our seltzers are coming in.
Yes, Friday.
And
we're doing a live show Friday.
We're doing a show Friday for that. So it's going to be a big week.
Shout out to Tactical Brewery and Doug down there, dude, who's our boy. So, yeah, we're doing that live, I believe, on Friday, weather permitting, as long as the seltzers get here on time. So we're amped about that. So tune in with us, dude. We'll be on all of these networks all of the time because we're here. Who cares? Let's party. For Dan and Anthony Hollaway, I'm Ross Patterson. We are the Drinkin' Bros.